Are you frustrated with the seemingly weekly price hikes of various streaming services? There's a reason that it's happening.
We're seeing changes at the high and low end of the streaming space. On one hand, 3 of the 4 premium live TV streaming services, Hulu Live, fuboTV, and DIRECTV Stream, all have raised their prices recently. And while YouTube TV hasn't done so yet, it wouldn't be surprising to see a price increase sometime this year, especially with their outlay of cash to secure rights to stream NFL Sunday Ticket. With the exception of YouTube TV, all have broken the $70 per month barrier. There are a few reasons for this.
First, they're testing the market to see just how much people are willing to pay, and they will keep raising it until they find the ceiling. People are still canceling cable in record numbers.
We're getting more comments and questions from people saying cable is just too expensive for them. They're paying $200 a month or more for cable and internet and say they don't watch anything but videos on YouTube plus 2 or 3 networks.
For the first time in history, there are now more Americans without cable than with it. The audience for cable will continue to skew older, and older people are generally on fixed budgets. And as more people switch to streaming, at least initially, a chunk of them are going to be okay paying $70 or more for a premium service because it feels like cable and it still costs less.
The other reason is that the market is maturing. As streaming services were building up subscriber bases, they started out with low prices to attract people to adopt them. Early adopters benefited from good content at a relatively low price.
Lower prices and a lack of cancellation fees are a big reason many of us left cable and switched to streaming services. But content is expensive to create. It always has been. And for about a decade, streaming services have been willing to take losses each year to create the content that would attract people to become subscribers. Now that their numbers are up, they need to start making profit. So they're cutting costs by canceling content and laying off employees. And they're trying to generate more revenue by offering ad-supported plans and raising their rates.
Yeah, we saw both Disney Plus and Netflix introduce ad-supported plans at the end of 2022. We're also seeing streaming services be willing to try new things to see if it can help them get more subscribers.
Hulu Live is a perfect example of this. Disney is losing money still on Hulu and Disney Plus, so they're trying to make it more attractive by bringing some live content to Disney Plus in the form of Dancing with the Stars, which they moved off of ABC and onto Disney Plus, and moving the Oscar nominations to it.
And they're even reportedly open to selling Hulu and Hulu Live. They're doing whatever they can to create a profit, whether that's through higher prices, selling services, or moving content off linear TV to try and increase those subscriptions.
They're also trying to attract more cable subscribers to sign up for Disney Plus by airing the series premiere of Mandalorian Season 3 on ABC, Freeform, and FX ahead of its release on Disney Plus.
While this might lure some away from cable, many people who have already been streaming for a while are starting to get fed up with the continuous rising price of premium services and are seeing that there are other options out there.
People are less loyal to streaming services now than they have ever been. While most people between 18 and 44 years old are willing to pay for their favorite shows and sports, they're also willing to switch services when they feel they're spending too much.
That's not surprising given that people subscribe to 4 or 5 streaming services on average. It makes sense that people want to cut down and make sure they're getting their money's worth. So there's a lot of churn, and 15% of Americans don't subscribe to any streaming services.
And that makes sense because there's a lot of growth at the free end of the streaming spectrum right now. If you've watched much TV lately, you've probably noticed ad campaigns for Tubi and Pluto. Both services have seen incredible growth. And why not? They offer decent content, usable interfaces, and are completely free.
Yeah, and they know it too. Fox's CEO turned down a reported $2 billion offer for Tubi. They bought it 3 years ago for $440 million. So in just 3 years' time, they are valuing it at least 4, if not 5 times what they paid for it, if not more. They know how valuable their services are because of the ad revenue they generate.
A combination of free ad-supported TV services and local channels through an antenna is a popular choice for many streamers, and that's really the point of this video. That while the streaming space is changing and it won't look how it does today, a year from now, we still have options.
If you don't need live TV and all of the most popular major sports, you can combine a few on-demand services and dramatically lower your monthly TV bill.
Yeah, so if you're fed up with rising prices, a combination of free services, on-demand services like Netflix and HBO Max, and getting your locals through an antenna is a good way to lower your costs while not giving up everything that you love to watch.
The movement we're seeing at both the high and low ends of the streaming space are causing people to rethink where they get their content. And that says something about where the streaming space is going.
CNBC interviewed TV executives for their opinion on what the streaming space will look like 3 years from now. When asked which streaming services will be around in 3 years, all respondents agreed on Netflix, Prime Video, Apple TV Plus, and either Disney Plus or HBO Max, which we found interesting and largely agree with.
And the other takeaway we found interesting was their responses to the question of whether or not we'll see a cable-like bundle of several major streaming services at some point in the next 3 years.
They were split, but the response we found the most compelling came from ex-Warner Brothers CEO Ann Sarnoff, who said, quote, "Can there be an aggregator so people wouldn't have to subscribe to a bunch of different offerings? The problem is always who goes in the middle. Bundling makes sense from a consumer perspective, but as a supplier, it's much more complicated. Paying one rate is simpler, but there's an imperfect value equation in there for the content supplier and programmer," end quote.
As streamers, we'd like one place to go for all of our content, and we'd love to pay one price for the shows, networks, and streaming services we want to watch. Sort of like a content buffet, where we enter, select what we want, and pay one cashier for it. We'll see if someone like Apple, Amazon, or Roku can get there. In the meantime, we're going to continue to need to watch our streaming budgets carefully and stay on top of our subscriptions.
Yeah, because as prices rise, it will get easier to overspend or spend on services we're not really using. If you need live TV, our best advice is to use an antenna for your locals and then supplement that with on-demand or light streaming services like Sling TV or Philo to get your must-have channels.
As we covered in our How to Watch Locals on Sling video recently, right now using an Air TV 2 device to get all your locals within Sling is about the most affordable and convenient way to get live TV, sports, and news in one place. That is unless and until a streaming bundle makes its way to the market.
It's something that we'll keep watching for sure. In the meantime, how do you see the streaming landscape changing in the next year or so? How many streaming services do you subscribe to? Let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can get all our latest news and reviews when they drop. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in our next video.